mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum.
Morning. 다 제가 가서 되게 담배 기초 되네 직 토바치기 요날에 봄바치기 요날에 다직 추적 돌아야 삼노당기 요날에 다 디모드 되네 직 심진 탐지 직 대원도 바탕 동안면도 왔고 징종이 애네 되네 직 심진 탐지 기동 지기요 삼바탕 다 대탕 냠들라 되네 라양 냐지 대와 노반나 이게 지 대와 칸디스 돕고와 대와 칸에 용구요와 아베나 대외 기주 개와 줄라 소발라 되네 용구요래 대등가 저다 대완도 바힌드 대외게 지 중가 저 드롭싱이요래 어다 대가나 이게 제가 저 누가 문도와 신드 지 능이 기주 칸에 용구요와 능이 기주 대요 내가 저지 빵토야게 탑nga 저로 요래 근데 요발라 때네 지금 라양 되네 오늘 나랑요 지금 고급 상보 어거더니 지금 대가 나 입에 자친보 라랑 그더니 지금 이치와 당 야라랑 그 appreciation 되네 제고 요래스
So generally, when practicing the authentic Dharma, whether we are engaging in the process of listening or hearing or studying, or whether we are meditating, or whether we are thinking about the meaning of the Dharma through contemplation, um, when there is the objective or the understanding that all sentient beings wish to have happiness, and all sentient beings wish to be free from suffering, or they don't wish to have suffering, and that we're all the same in this desire. And so with that in mind, then to understanding that first and foremost, that sameness, that connection that we all share, and just as we wish to be happy, others also wish to be happy. But what is so unique about our own situation is that we really have learned how to achieve happiness. We feel, very clear. We understand the Dharma, and therefore we understand the true causes of happiness. And so everything that is needed to achieve that happiness is available to us. And so, and we know how to avoid the causes of suffering. We have identified what are in fact the true causes of suffering, and we know how to avoid creating those causes of suffering. And so recognizing also, um, how fortuitous our own situation is, and really having a deep sense of appreciation with regard to that, we can really feel a sense of real reliance on ourselves, a sense of real confidence and reliance, and really appreciate our own situation in this way.
뒤에 다지당 가서 지금 냠내 친게 경원의 섬노 땅비나 즉 신디게 즉 강에 세나리 Penachahawina, Chi, Mopoke, Ganine, Nayan, Teneji, Sem, Tanyum, number topic, Ganetini, Chongi Gavla, Teneji, when a chiller remote to Naji, who Ganeti, who Geji Jela, Meva Chatovia Tindiki, Yamlechinaji, who was on the Tamina, Yori, Inayam, Tanga to Tindiki, Nitsi, maybe Inayam. 나도 다 담배 초만 뭐지 투 냠래 집에 내가라 아지 원에 지내지 깡에 되게 논래야게 거다 락차나 마서나 나도 차선 요래 뒤에네
Gande lecture.
락차로 요래스
Oh,
락차
lecture.
락차스다 다 요래스 뭐 뒤에네 지 섬노지 땅위나 당 공투와나 이리고 계제제를 치르지 못하와나 매위 있나요 강나 강성도 가서 내가 요래 지금 용문 이렇게 되는 이제 왕tum 로마토야 용문 뭐 총도 땅야 대요래 대는다디 원에 자 첨보래 자 첨보 간디스 라위나 원에 지금 냠래 치고 찍을래 때는 드니 중국 요래 마토 비기 되네 지 치고 볼래 때네 총투가 말에 주번 요래 때네 총투가 말에 근데 철로래 지 묘야 요 말에 다 대는 PMS이 짜침으로 되는 대양한테는 보랑게 직단하고 convenient 간디는 지토와 탄다 용구요로 되는 대양한테는
Gande convenient.
어
The Jamadia Bokumaso.
지탄 convenient와 가서나 인가서 이다 원용 뭐 메가 소기 람테는 가서 잘 안다고 지금 요 되네 다른 보징도 되네 고구 말에스 가서나 가서 지금 원에 지나 되네와 지금 원에 타는 지 용문 바 제기요나야 되네 고지 사견 당보라 되네 지금 용문 같은 제기요나라와 넘버도 과 당보라 용문 바 제기요나 되네 지금 넘버도 과 니베건 뭐 냠야한다고 지지시더니 지나 대가랑 지 용문 받고 내가 차토야다 용문 받고 디두스 치토그로와 되네 와탄 같은 용문 받고 지 총도 땅야 치듯이 잘라 지금 요 파일을 지금도 언로 손지 땅과 요 말이다 컨비니언 차디거레스 되네 땡아도 오늘 다 첨보래 임발랑 아주 다주 디스코 카세고래 맞다 주치기요래 되는 주치바텔라 주치라도 가서나 주그 밸류 아주 랭고고레스
And so, for those of us who practice the Dharma, we really have a lot of methods through which we can diminish the difficulty and suffering in our lives. So even for a practitioner, even when there are really challenging outer circumstances, hardship or difficulties, and of course there are the inward arisings of afflicted mind states, emotions and concepts, but as practitioners we have the ability to release grasping in such a way that even though these difficulties arise, they are as insubstantial as patterns drawn on the surface of water. So just as quickly as a pattern is drawn on the surface of the water, it also dissolves. It completely disappears. As practitioners, we have the ability to immediately release whatever difficulties, whatever mental states that are causing obstacles, whatever afflictive emotions, in the same way. And even if we are not able to release them immediately, we still have many other tools. We have many tools to use available to us, many methods to work with the mind, to work with our afflicted mind states. So even if we can't, instantaneously liberate them like drawings or patterns drawn on the surface of water, we can apply any number of these diverse methods available to us to at least not completely fall under the power of the afflicted mind state, at least to cause the intensity of the emotion, the intensity of the affliction to diminish somewhat. So we know that, and actually it's really convenient. It's right, these methods are so accessible. They're right here with us all the time. We don't have to go to some other place. We don't have to, like have a whole lot of outer conditions that are present for this. We don't have to, amass a lot of wealth or to buy, this or that special thing to achieve it. We don't have to look we don't have to look in some far off place. We have the ability right in the very moment to apply these extraordinary methods. So in the first moment, then maybe an afflicted mind state arises, and it may take us over in that first moment. But then in the second moment, once we sort of gained our footing, then we can turn our mind to the practice. In the second moment, we can take a moment to drop into the meditative absorption. And in that moment that we drop into a meditative absorption, then that affliction, even if we're not able to entirely release it altogether, we can tremendously cause its power, or we can cause the power of that emotion to greatly diminish by doing so. So actually it's so convenient. It's really so convenient, and it's so precious and profound. So it's important to understand the value of the Dharma in this way.
대가나 얘기되네. 제가 가서 주님네 진행라 대송벌했네. 지키 오후 세그로 wealth 야 되네 rich 차그레스 대가나기게 배나 주님네 진행로 지좀 방미나 physical 가르스나다디 주님네 진행라 good health 되니지 차되기요레스.
So chukbodang, good health chabiyore.
배나 지금 보이는 추보레스. 좀 더 챔투 그래 지금 보려 때네. 대가나 이게 지 곰점내 잡이나 곰점내 집이나 non health healthy health 차그레스.
So just in the same way that, one becomes wealthy, like based on, accumulating a lot of outer objects, outer possessions, or wealth, outer wealth and possessions. And then we call that person rich. But in the same way, for the Dharma practitioner, there is this inner wealth that can develop. We become internally very healthy. We have good health.
good health. wealth 세야 돼 가리 세나 지용 그것도 섬노 야고 땅에 칠록 wealth position 들라 지 가서 고그레 잘라지 이나야 고 잘라 디게 지다 지탄 100% 말이 디나야 고지 잘라지 요나 디게 노바츠미야 리미트 디스 갖고 요레스 지 사람에 가서 누가 된 누구요와 도베치네 렌트치 통다 손도 지배샤 자요나 똥똥요나 트트요나 bom트니 그 고고야 되니 참 도우노요레스 이나야 기시 도우로 만도 이나지 satisfied 히라 용비요 말레스 디다 나셈 그거네 지 삼노지 다는가 저기도 노나 꾸인지 나는 초시 봐 손도 초시지 요위나 근데 그 강한 요와 되게 satisfaction 차되기요레스 근데 인도 맞아 텔레카스나 축복해서 riches wealth, 와. 대통 몰라면 일 health 와.
So externally, when we, we seek good health, or high position, or abundant wealth, and sometimes it can be that one has all of those fortunate aspects externally kind of coming together, and so maybe not 100%, but at least
Everyone.
not for everyone, but at least for some, this can sometimes occur, and yet there's still often a lack of satisfaction. Even if we succeed in getting all of the things that we desire externally, it still isn't going to necessarily make us happy. It's still not going to, we still may not feel like it is enough. In fact, sometimes it only gets worse. Just as it says in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, indulging sense pleasures is like drinking salt water. As much as one indulges, thirst and craving only increase. And so sometimes it's the case that the more that one sort of satisfies, or the more that one gets what one wants, the less one actually feels satisfied, the more one actually feels that one wants. And so really, the key is the mind of contentment. Often it can be the case, one gets $100 and then that's not enough. One wants 1,000 and then one wants, several 100,000, and so on and so forth. So there's never any end to desire. Desire can continue to increase exponentially. And so the mind that feels satisfied, the mind that has an attitude of contentment, is one that is okay regardless of the situation, that one feels, this is enough. I am content with this, whether one has a lot or whether one has little.
어디가 난 health야, 들어. health 때 다 오늘 지나 지 곰냠래 지금 근데 갑라 오늘 지 섬지 메샤와리 지 그런 거랑 영용도 쉬위나 오늘 지 곰세야 티 뉴파텔라 거지 ben physically 지올로 두고요래 간에서 두고요라비나 지금 오늘 딜루 초월 지월라 세고요와 세고요래 비나요
건다 소르바
룬 초월 지발라 sustenance 와 룬초 고구나 세 고구와 이나야 거지 세마고와 근데
칼라 라기요베
네 제가 나 이해되네 지금 아주 룰라 돌아 고구와 이나야 지 공자원에 가라 지 담옥해 저도야 근데 연구요 yes 테니트네 근데라다 가스나 good health
and then health, is something that we also sort of attribute to, kind of our, the external health of the body, that we don't really connect so much with the mind. But the truth of the matter is, for instance, for great meditators, it's really actually quite extraordinary, the physical transformation that can occur in the body or physically. And Drupala says, he knows this from his own experience, during the time in which he was doing intensive meditation retreat, that the power that this can have, physically, it can just like completely transform the physical makeup of the body, the physical situation of what we experience physically. So, for instance, ordinarily we need food. We need sustenance to survive and to maintain our health, to be healthy and vibrant. But when one subsists on the food of meditative absorption, on samadhi, then actually one can get to a point where one doesn't even need the intake of food. One doesn't have to rely on, ingesting physical substances or actual like food substances for sustenance. Likewise, ordinarily we need clothes to protect us from, the cold and the elements. But during the time of intensive meditation, then the body naturally regulates in such a way that even in freezing cold temperatures, one doesn't need many clothes, if any.
어다 딘디 당가서 지 딘디 기탄다고 가까워요데 아니 컨트리버나 예르네 지 appreciation 제야다 고 짜체 뭐 임발라 임바 제야게 고 하고야디 케치고레스.
But mainly, we have, such a great fortune in that we have the ability to understand the Dharma and to apply ourselves in the practice of Dharma. And so it's really important to have some appreciation for our great fortune, understanding, how precious and wonderful this really is.
어다 디가나 예케고 탄다 휴가나 예다 네카 브로와 지 룰레 데와 셈라 데와 더자마지 베케 타토양고 데네 데와런도와 데네 데와런도와 세야디 지 타토양 데네 고 complete 데와토비아 와 타와 탐지 지메 공모토비아 어다 디니 그지 연구요와데 디네테 요와데 나도다 타이 코티오나 예리 야네 짜르토나 appreciation.
So temporarily, as we practice the Dharma, it becomes the cause for both physical and mental comfort and well-being, both temporarily in this life, and also it becomes the cause for ultimate or complete unchanging happiness as the final fruition or the ultimate ripening of these causes that we create through our practice of the Dharma, that will eventually ripen in the full fruition of complete awakening. And so again, to reflect on how extraordinary this is and to feel a sense of appreciation and gratitude for our own good fortune is really so important.
So now we look at 37 practice. So now I think it looks like 31, right? So rank and tuba rank and matana chupi soji chumi cheesy be teacher junior rank and tuba la tane pomaja selamis.
So then in these instructions on the 37 Bodhisattva practices, we're now on verse number 31, which says, if having merely the appearance of a practitioner, one does not investigate one's own mistakes, it is possible to act contrary to the Dharma. Therefore, constantly examining one's own errors and abandoning them is the Bodhisattva's practice.
That indu 기상가서다 지 ngazo rangso zongone samre oda nga chuchigiyo da chisamgiyo na yang ko chutela kene ji yang thaba ro thamando yunggiyo re tiga na yi ki chepardo kariyor slavina 기상가서 namba se ji yorwa 기상가서 da sanskrit ndo chiwina buddhism lawyo re yina yang 다테 초 어지 조롱베 까라 다 포베기 돌아 되네 나 세야지 빠 세야지 요래다 나 세야지 코 인사드와 빠 세야지 것도 다다 인사리 인사다 와 어때 테 칼라고 요래 슬라비나 tene chi la matawa ne rawa chi yu la matawa sheji tene tambo na la ta gore sone gedang ta mambo je ko ni gore sem ki nyamle songdo sem ki nyamle songdo sem ki nyamle se ya di to karsina sem khani chigido ta ku ra tinde tene tambo 카조 나로지 나 가르치기도 로 직다 단나가서 주치유 삼구열이 오가 주원이 치기도 봐 지금도 와 와다 드네지지 강다 라라 따고 그래 얘는 계속 마타비나 지가라고 나 주치유 나 주바이 삼구요나야 직텔라 드네지 용봐 캬당 근데와 근데 용구요레스 다 테닉 방고레스
So what this verse is really addressing is the fact that even though we may consider ourselves to be Dharma practitioners, and we kind of have this assumption, that we're acting in accord with the Dharma, that we value the fact that we identify as Dharma practitioners. And yet, very often it's possible for our conduct or our actual practice, or the way as a Dharma practitioner to become kind of corrupted, or for mistaken approaches to arise, so that we, because of delusion, we don't necessarily recognize the ways in which we have gone astray, or the mistakes that might be present in our actions of body, speech, and mind. So what is really, what does it really mean to be a Buddhist? What does it really mean to be a Dharma practitioner? So the term itself, which is Nangpa in Tibetan, which in Sanskrit, is we say, or in English we call it Buddhism, based on the Sanskrit word Buddha. But when we translate the Tibetan term, there's the first part of the word, which is Nang, which literally means inside or inward, or within. And then Pa is the article, which is sort of causes that to become a noun. So it is, the Pa means one who is inside, one who essentially dwells within, one who turns inward, is really the meaning of that word Nangpa. So it means, somebody who is not focused on outwardly focused, but is always turning the mind in on itself, always looking at the inner state of one's own mind. And when we look, as long as we are looking, we will see, we will not, become sort of deceived by our own sort of mistaken agendas and so forth, because we will be aware. But it takes turning the mind in and really looking, really being clear about what are the true sort of motivating factors, or what are our true intentions that are guiding our actions of body, speech, and mind. And so it's important to look. It's just this step of turning within and looking. Am I really behaving in a way that accords with the Dharma? Are my intentions really pure and genuine? Are they really in line with the Dharma? Or are they not? And so as long as we don't turn the mind inward in this way, if the mind is always sort of facing outward or looking outward, then we can miss a lot. And even though we may say, oh, I'm a Dharma practitioner, we identify with ourselves as a Dharma practitioner, it's possible that that actually our conduct and attitudes are in fact in contradiction to the Dharma or contrary to the Dharma. And so by turning the mind inward, undoubtedly we will see the hindrances, the afflictive emotions, and through awareness of those afflictive emotions, then we can do what is necessary to release them, to abandon them.
다디 그 종지 요래 나 종지 딱 다디 기근에 미나 하고 마서 이나야 당고마 뒤수지 강나 다 보라테네 지 드린도 총버리스네 지 머차도라테네 배 지다 마나 동 추치 가론도 가완도나 배 니 지기 요래서
Mani don chuchi dong
추치 만도 추치야
karelamin kare. Oh,
많이 거 추치 때네 니 지기 요래서 드네 자와도 드네 지 조트다디 링기도 조트리 맞아 넘바 휴도 막 유케지 링기도 그래 이나야 거다들 related 요러와 드네 자와도 드네 지고 다 비갑랑 드조베 다숑 드트니게 멤다트니 콜 드니 지기 요래스
memdako.
야 멤다 코사 거도에
Re carry guns.
야 드니 콜라마지 요래스 라마티다 캔사 딩도 빼마시비 트윗 베인 고경으로 로도 스모니 자와도 추치 얘기면도 뭐제도는 배 추가고 치기도 딱고 딱시 치고 원도 섬기네 냈다 디르 디어와 라와 디어 마스크 이죠 라스트 배 공치 뭐와 배 마스크 공치 되네 데 라와지 되네 히다 라야 메존도 오지 차디가 서와 되네 고무일에다 뭐제도도 용구요래 랑과 강다 지 공가서도 인터넷 하웨로 지로와 되네 다들이 홍바지하는 용구요래 뭐라도 이거 말와 데 람가 강을 거 라와테 샤테 라마티 따디여 서와 가래 지기로 섬네 되네 다 담보배다 때 아메리 뭐차지 레브레스네 다 뭐제레네 고만도 중앙에 오만이 나는 거 라와도 통레스 라와 통마라다 거 라베츠 공치 뭐 가임바 하고로와 람상 거랑 만다 중앙이 거베 안바나 다지네 콜라와 세야 차리치기 요레스 라마디 오토세야 요마리 노라 요서와 데네 데 콘도요서 데네 디슈라 데네 다 차와지 베데 맘다 득게 맘다 형 데네 다 형 데네 용구요서와 데 용와데 라와트 람가 강나 샤샤데 데네 데네 람상 라마디 따디 지 차와디 통마디 가로 콘소베 닝겐도 지치 람상 따리 마파 단디 람가강 샤샤나 고미 히메스 인도그 람테 신나기 샤요서와 오다 티인디야 참랭 가서지 고 지추추 지유 삼비나야 고 나한테가 고 디스 아포센도 차게서 예스
So there's a story, and whether this story really completely gets to the point or not, he said he's not, actually the purpose of the story is kind of about the value of having the vows. But it also really sort of addresses what is being explained here in this verse too. So there was a time in Tibet where one spiritual teacher was kind of lamenting the fact that he said, now things have gotten all sort of upside down and backwards, or the sort of the reverse, meaning the reverse, and that, all of the lay people are, walking around with their malas and their, prayer wheels, and they're always chanting and doing circumambulations and, constantly sort of practicing or having this appearance of outwardly, practicing the Dharma. And at that time, there were a bunch of monks who had started like carrying guns and arrows, right? Not arrows. What did you said a few things? Oh, knives, swords, and guns. Yeah, swords and guns. So the monks were riding horses, and they were carrying always sort of carrying around or wearing swords and guns. And so the Lama was saying, wow, we've really, things have, we're really in a time now where everything is kind of backwards, where everything has become reversed. And he was saying, how this was really not right. But then the one day, the Lama, when he was walking down this main path, so there was kind of a main walking path, because of course there weren't cars, but there was the main road that was sort of like the highway where everybody traveled by foot and by horse and so forth. And so the Lama was walking on this path, and he came across a wounded musk deer, a deer who had, this really valuable musk that is, one can get a really high price for it. And he witnessed that, shortly after this, there was one of these lay practitioners who came down the road.
Lama wanted to analyze the investigation. So then he called Lama hide.
Oh, okay. So I missed this part. So the Lama decided he wanted to kind of just investigate what people's reactions to this would be. So he hid in the bushes. And first there was somebody who came down the road, a lay practitioner, with his prayer wheel and his mala, and he was chanting his mani mantras. And then he stumbled upon the musk deer, and he thought, ooh, wow, I've really, hit the jackpot. And he put his prayer wheel and his chuba and, put away his mani mala, and he decided, okay, and he was going to kill the musk deer, and then the Lama jumped out of the bushes and said, no, don't kill him. Don't do that. And so then the lay practitioner went on his way. And then a little bit while after that, there came a monk, riding up on his horse with his gun and his knife. And then he saw the musk deer, and he hopped off of his horse, and he felt, so much compassion. And he said, oh no, really somebody's going to come along, and then they're going to want to kill the musk deer because they can get a good price for the musk. So I better hide the deer. And so he gently lifted the deer up and moved him to a safe place, in the bushes. And so what this goes to show is that, it seemed externally like you had, one person would have made judgment about the outer appearance of the monk, thinking, oh, this is really a degenerate monk. And the other person would have maybe come across the lay practitioner who had the external, outward semblance of a practitioner, with the mani wheel and the prayer beads and the chanting. And yet so the outer appearance doesn't always accurately express, the inner conditions of the mind.
我的听的印度，今天我做大吉他，就让马塔为呢，今天我做秋几天秋季谁呀有的，几天前吧，你堂没你堂，爹堂没爹，娘堂没娘堂。多米几天秋季不是，这提纲了的呢，提纲都是这个是。
So what is it, that that really kind of that really indicates, this kind of going astray, even holding an outward semblance, or an outward semblance of a practitioner? What is it that really indicates that one's practice is not really completely in line with authentic Dharma. And it really is the arising of the 8 worldly concerns, or being motivated by the 8 worldly concerns. So the 8 worldly concerns are gain and loss, seeking gain and avoiding or fearing loss, um, praise, seeking praise and fearing blame, seeking pleasure and fearing or avoiding pain, and seeking fame and fearing obscurity.
다 되는데 단지 괜찮아. 니다 많이 쓰는 다지 나서지. 니바. 대 된들라 되네 지배 지 니바다 톱 너무 좀 봐. 제타가 좀 넣어봐다 요리. 얘네야 지타가 되니지 고기도 삼바지 로와. 니 많이 쓰는 지 넣어봐. 되네 디나네 다 넣어봐 될래야. 되네 지 니바 될라 디가나 배 세수치야. 아, 되네 지 많이 봐를 배. 당가서 톱마 some 등이지야. 용거로. 되는데 야보 some 담이나 티켓아 티가 가는 거야. 레라고 휴레. 맞을지 콘디요. 조 가서 당지 다은지 뭐 요할 때네. 더 콘디요. 얘네야 고리야리 야보 some 담이나 다가 기타 가서 지 고그리 이나 코남포 용거리 맞다 고도 some 용거리 얘네야 지 선호 여보다나 나 고고도 삼바티케 고 고야탐 두야 요 말이 다티 심제라리 와
고근도스 공타 남통 용거래 얘네야.
용그레 예스 남도 용그레 이네야 드네 지 고고도 삼바티케 니바와 다 니바 수로를 니바 고고도 삼바티 페 넘버 또 쇼 첨부 요나 티 고야탈 레야 요 말이 섬여 여보 당비나 그티 동예지 때그리 뭐더비게 나 지베 고모자타마 고도 스타나 고모자타마 고도 삼바페 로쇼 첨부요나 고모자타마 고도 삼베 로티케 강이 때그리 뭐더비게 고모자 용구 말와 다 텔리 고지 톱나 가고 뭐더나 가고 토네 지 고모자레 레칸달레 카지나 지 제수치 제하요로 뭐다 텔리 어디가 나 인가다 고모자 토마송 삼바티케 능에 티케 고모자 토야요 말와 어디에 있네 어디다 티네
So first with seeking gain, or the two worldly concerns of gain and loss, but actually in Tibetan it's more like it's actually literally finding and not finding. So it's
that's good.
yeah. So it's wanting to essentially get or gain something, and not wanting to, and fearing not getting, or feeling aversion to not gaining that thing. And so this is present when there's the mind of craving, or desire, that really wants to get this, that, or the other. The mind that thinks I need this, that, or the other. If I don't get this, that, or the other, I won't be okay. I won't be happy, and I will suffer. And so this, of course, is very natural. This is just the human condition. We all have the arisings of the 8 worldly concerns because of the mind of self-grasping. As long as self-grasping is present, then there are the arisings of the 8 worldly concerns. But the way that
we look at the deeper way. That these things are wonderful.
But the approach can vary, or the attitude with regard to those 8 worldly concerns. We can look at them in a deeper way, or we can take a sort of deeper approach, and that. So for instance, first, maybe the thought arises, like I need or I want this thing. And I'll do, whatever is necessary to get it. And however strong that feeling of need is, then when we really examine, instead of just being focused on the object, when we of our desire, the thing that we think that we need, when we really look at the the effect that that desire has on our well-being, our well-being of body and mind, then we see that that craving itself is actually not doing any good. It isn't doing us any favors. The desire to have the thing is actually creating dissatisfaction, a sense, a lack of well being, a lack of ease. It's actually causing suffering. And not only that, just wanting doesn't bring the object of one's desires about. So by wanting the thing, that doesn't make it come to us, any more easily. So there are so the downside is that we just bring more difficulty to ourselves the more that we encourage, or the more that we follow after, or indulge in the eight worldly concerns. The um, the desire for gain causes difficulty and suffering, and it doesn't make those things that we hope to gain come. So instead, to have an attitude of equanimity, which says, if it comes, it comes. I'm okay, I'll be happy. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. I'm okay, I'll be happy. So whether we get or we don't get, we're essentially fine.
어다 대가 나 이대 담에 대세야. 다 가서 지타다 가서 대화 고고도 잠고 동안도 고고 요생에 삼고요 말이. 얘네야 고 지파리. 나 대화도 고고도 삼이나. 고 대화 고고도 삼바 티케 고 능해질 랩 잘다디. That's very moment. 티인도 고 대화도야 탑라. 다 대화도 삼반지 요이나. 다 탑도 동거와. 가서 검잠나 대화도 그래. 잠바다 닝제오나 대바토 그래 틴디제 강란도야 마통가
So gare dangpo kare la de jamdang ningje ginguna kare la in da jamdang ningje ginguna kare la in
티 공잠나 라인바
gomjane dewala kare
대화랩 그래와 대치용 그래 대 주년에 지는 대치 인중 그러 마통가 대화 고도 삼백 로지 계디비나 티 로찌마 다들라 고 강이지 용 그래스 되네 대가 나기게 기타 돌레스틱 컨셉트와 되네가 대화 고 동행 고구면도 삼백로 대가랑게 고 동행지 레부요레스 티인도 티게 고 동행 가토야 요 말이다 사마지 파나로 와
So it's really the same with the worldly concerns of pleasure and pain, or pleasure. It's really like either happiness and suffering, or like well-being and discontent, happiness and suffering, I guess. So if we wish for happiness, it's that same kind of sensation of wanting to gain something, wanting to have fulfillment, wanting to feel satisfied, wanting to feel to enjoy, or to have pleasure. And the very moment that desire to be happy arises, there's suffering, because it means that there isn't well-being present in the present moment. So we're wanting something other than what our current experience is. And so the moment there's that thought of, I want to feel good. I want to have, whatever form that desire for happiness and well-being is taking, then it indicates some state of dissatisfaction, some state in which there's a lack of well-being. So what is it that really brings about a sense of happiness and well-being? it's really through our practice, through meditation. The moment that you sit down to meditate, there is a real genuine sense of inner contentment and well-being that can be generated in that in that very moment. When we have love and compassion in the mind stream, then there's a real pervasive sense of joy and well-being. So we won't bring about happiness just by desiring it, just by wishing for it. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The more that we long for our own happiness, or we long to be happy or enjoy, to enjoy, for a sense of enjoyment, then we really actually only bring about a lack of contentment. We're only actually increasing our difficulty, because this is based on a dualistic concept. So it's the same with suffering. So the moment we think, oh, I need this to be happy, or I want to be happy in this way, then we're struggling in this friction of dualistic concept. And the same with suffering. When we think, oh, I'm afraid, when we are afraid to suffer, then again, we're creating the friction of dualistic grasping.
대가 나이다 디슈그 년 담면스네 지바리 되네 당가서 작바스요와 당가서 지견라 작바스야 돼 고시우츠기로 봐 작바스야 돼 당원에 진짜 작바스야 돼 내기 되어 다 단단 가서 지견 추진데 초초돌라고 이거 지견 추지 추로 추지 그는 지견 추진데 오면 다 나라마이 나게겐 치야 나 티처 치야 오다 티디 티 책인데 어디 지가 게겐 치고 삼바 당 teacher chigo sambe ke tsegi ti rank tongla te mena tene gegen ki tsengi sambares o nga gegen chigi samna ta kon dobaji go wa ko nyom baji tena na chigo samba yoro ti tangone gegen kitan lobjong go gro wa lobjong go gre gegen chiya ti lobjong go gre nyam go gre tokwa go gre yena yang ko tato ki tsegi ti chi lama te nga gegen chigi sambadi 로트데 매와치 않아? 근데 개개치야 틀을 내버려스. 벤송로지 슈이나 단다디 ngazo 다 지금 점공 시벨로도케 드네다다 캔진 현가를 못 해서 다 개라치 모르와 현가를 못 친다. 흉진
공타당보 양처스는 수.
더 통못했라.
Okay. So then the next one then is fame, or desiring fame, which is actually the same again as gain, a similar sort of thing. It has that quality of gaining, wanting to have a good reputation, wanting to be renowned, wanting to be admired by many people, and then, of course, fearing the opposite of that, fearing a bad reputation, fearing a obscurity. And so it is often said, for instance, if one, has the objective to be like a great and famous lama, or a world-renowned teacher, then that when that objective, that wish itself, is based on afflictive emotion. So it is, wanting to gain status, wanting to gain, some position of respect. And so that itself undermines, the qualities of really being a great teacher. So in order to be a great teacher, one has to have experience, one has to have knowledge, learning through study, and most important, one has to have genuine realization and the qualities of sincere love and compassion. And so when all of those qualities are present, then there's not the attitude of self-grasping that is wishing for fame and recognition. So actually, the time when it's appropriate for one to really become a guide to beings is when that wish is, for renown is not at all present.
我在听的本来下小位呢，但对公讲讲，那西北路路开的呢，但看见香港人不去是的，然后看见香港从好个个看见香港，但本来因为呢给他切小了哇，听的听呢。他拉的呢，对公讲讲给，看见香港人不去去拍拖呢，拍不着那是。对公呢，也得去做个意思。这个学的，他这个拍马头边呢，他这个老马茶这当着那是。需要的是，对公讲讲看见香港人。
茶吧食汤。
我打老马去看不去当着，其实老表了哇。
的卡杜嘞，对。
他学老多，他这个他那讲么是。你是个好嘛的吧
？OK，对呢。
对呢，当然看见香港拍拖要嘛的，那他别叫然后说着意思的，那没呢，当然。
然后
说着，么讲？别没事为可能别多管通报，别没事给他意思的哇。那当然有的，对呢，但我那这边呢，就讲讲给的那学过的。天看见香港这里，他都没看到嘞，这里那么早起是要嘛的，天气当嘛的，天他搞直播去呢，当然天边的讲讲的，这个能都直播去多个了吧？他们明年要用的，肯定是过做的用的是呢，天可能帮过呗，土老都不空气空呢，加拉呀看呀嘛去，天明年要什么都用的，弄个机器天帮过的我去，帮过他帮过天容易要了吧？帮过容易天要了。
So, kung so expectation kung zigbo nang jing lep ju yore de dampo zigbo lep go ati kare.
Zigbo lep go yung sig lo wa. Du jam gong ki invite chi lo wa. Tene kenje hinge ko pe specific ta yo lo wa. Tene ko naturally zigbo lo wa ha sa. Yine ya koran ke chitang de tene chi yo des.
So there's the story of the former Kyabgon Drikung Kyabgon Rinpoche Shiwe Lodro, who invited Kinchin Shinga, really renowned Nyingma Lama, to come to help establish a Drikung Kagyu Shedra. And so he requested.
당가 저 흉전 죽손 세야 대 흉성한테 현견들 와라. 야 흉근들 와 처음부터
So mipam기 loma yemba kosong tene digi
tene 현가를 뭐지 세야 돼. 단다 흉전 죽손 로종 세야 요라. 흉전 죽손 하고도 흉전 죽손. 흉엄마 세마 다 tene 희칭고 도전 단 담을 이제 흉죽손 요라.
Oh yeah.
어 딘들와 처음부터 돼. 걔네 현가레스.
So Kenshin Shinga was like the foremost disciple of Mipam Rinpoche, and he was known for composing all of these really extraordinary commentaries on the 13 major treatises of study, or the 13 major commentaries that are typically studied in Shedra. So he was invited to come, but then of course he didn't, having all of the responsibilities and demands, and also at this point maybe he was a little bit elderly, so he wasn't able to come, but he promised to send someone really extraordinary in his place, kind of like the highest possible quality Kimpo possible in his place. And so he sent Kimpo, Rahul Chudrak. who was indeed a really, really extraordinarily learned master with also with really incredible, with really genuine realization and incredible qualities. And so when he came to the monastery the first time, ordinarily it would be
this along the way rồi.
expected, and everyone sort of witnessed him coming along the way, and it would be expected, or it could be the case, that he would, come in this great sort of caravan, with, sort of dressed in the finest brocades and, with all of the instruments playing, and, that there could be a big sort of, um, elaborate display, with his arrival, because it was a really big deal. He was, invited by, the head of the Drikung Kagyu monastery, and it was, Kenshin Shinga who had sent him, as his very finest, representative. But instead, Rahul Chudrak Rinpoche came in like the completely appearing like a beggar, just in extremely ordinary kind of nothing special, tattered clothing, even begging along the way, seeking alms along the way. So a completely humble disposition was the he had a completely humble disposition, and everyone was really quite surprised, who everyone who saw him or who witnessed, his arrival on the way.
Tiene along the way, tiene chi con pango, chini yong yorwa. Tiene tamadeda ko dung zong se yata, dung jamon namni shuza tele abiores. Tele de tiene chi ta ko dung jamon attendant zoma da de tiene ko pango no ji yorwa. Tiene chi tiene koran na ata dung jamon ji inji haji ragreves labdwa.
Dangpo yang char ko so ko sare kongda.
Tene da koran pango ke na yi chini tene dung pile dung zong se yatela dung jamon namni huksarawa. Ako so
But it's shuksa Drikung Zong de tanya bo yusarawa.
So this Digong Tete or Digong T monastery, and then Digong Zong means the Jamonamik Chuksarwa.
Okay. Dine?
In a cause of one in the Podalana Jabiorwa. Or then Tineta Telebiorwa arrive in at the Zong. Teledutine. Tadunkoda, Pangona, Yoro, Pangotine, Koranki, Tadun, Chunchijotana, and Digungam Gonji Ragreves as to the holiness attendance. Tintine holiness attendance, oh, yeah, that the huge race. Chitachu Kaneyong is Tine Tanga. Any Koran Lamsa Yegi, you Sarwate, Shinkenya Hingan, which Yegi. Titanga Yegi, they get the young Poogle will not do. Then you get a cutting here at Jamon Poogle, then you get an anwa. You get in the Kenya Shangate, Jamon, which be Hans on who that tende pebble stuff. But they take us in the Katuina Yoma is the neck of the Tarik no cheap is. In that case, Lama Korang or intelligent the bed, that's the one Doba Mevano. In the Takoji, let me see no.
And it wasn't as though, he was making a show of being humble. It wasn't as though he was, trying to sort of play himself down. He really just didn't think of himself as anything really special. And so when he arrived at Drikung Zong, which is sort of the special quarters for the two for Kyabgen Rinpoches, the two holinesses of the lineage. So there's Drikung Til, and then there's Drikung Zong. So the main monastery is Drikung Til, and then Drikung Zong is the quarters, the living quarters of the two holinesses, which is actually styled in a way that is somewhat similar to the Potala. And when he arrived, he said, "Oh, is it possible to have an audience with His Holiness, with Kyabgon Rinpoche?" And he was just completely unassuming, and just nothing at all. Kind of, he just was as though he was asking, could I see His Holiness? He said to the attendant, and the attendant said, "Oh yeah, maybe that will be possible. Who, where have you come from? What's your name?" And he said, "Oh, I have this letter, that was given to me." So then he gave the letter to the attendant, and then the attendant, of course, it was a letter from Shinga Rinpoche, and Kenshin Shinga, sorry, and he and immediately the attendant was just like, completely, his attitude changed, and he thought, "Oh, of course, oh my goodness," and he became extremely deferential, and then led him in to see His Holiness.
Rei ta ko so pe ndung ti le ta de ti chi yo wa. So all right, so this he looks like, even though everybody believes he's beggar, but then this Holiness got letter. Holiness extremely surprised. Oh, that's this. So he cannot come like that way. So then all the monastery so prepare for all the line, and so this all the simple decorations so did. But he is just showing is just like really it is like a beggar, so but he really so that's me. So that level is like teacher's level. So but sometimes we, as long as we want or wish, so that level is still not teacher's level. So that's according to the Buddhism. For other teachers, yes, they have education, they can teach us. Tin ta zo ka sna nga zo chu ji se ya de ji ke chu ji se ya de man de go go re. Tin nga ji top go do nga men go do sa na ku ji ke chu ji da de de go. Yes, that's what it is.
So mainly, that's really an example of a real, true, authentic spiritual teacher, because when there is the wish to be a teacher based on the 8 worldly concerns, or thinking one wants to have a big name or something, then this actually is completely contrary to the Dharma. It's in contradiction to the Dharma.
Ina yang ta yang nga zo ji ko mong be ki simpian tong chi ya ki chi de la nga zo ji mong ba la simpian tong chi gi sa ta la nga zo te song de ne sim de ka sa de tam ba zong ji ze sim ba zong de ji nga zo mong sim ji go yo de bo me simpian tam ji tong chi gi sam ba ji ro wa gu mong yang go yo de la ta na yang dedication ji de de go yo de ina yang ko ngo s la la ta ya la de ne ko che yin de ji de ni sim go sa de is.
And so, but we to have the aspiration to be able to benefit sentient beings through vast activities in the future is very important. So to have to make aspiration prayers to be able to accomplish beings' benefit through vast enlightened activity, to have this sincere and heartfelt aspiration to include this in our dedication prayers is also very important. And then to understand our limits, in the moment, to understand, what our real capacity is in the present moment.
So 가선 당이 컨티와 나기래 가서 추치도 고 넘바 치스나리다 추치를 qabla 고 추당 tum바지 치고 요러 봐 되는데 네 상지 좀 된데 송요래 니에키 땜반데 상지 키 땜반데 뭐 힘바지 이렇게 높다고 말해 송으로 와 힘마지 높스나 하고도 매와서 두고 말이스 이나야 나밍 한다지 칠로디네 비 초파인 바다고 라마인 바다고 틴디친 테네 텔 메게 바다고 나라 탄다테네 진직된 추지 왕던도 틴디친 테네 니테 바테네 베 나밍 한다지 니테 바 높도 그레스 매와서 그레스 토마토 치 다나 오제케 니테 바네 매와서 두고 말이스 온와
So actually, the Buddha himself has said that if there comes a time when people who claim to be Dharma practitioners, or who claim to represent my teachings, or claim to sort of hold and propagate the Dharma, who may have outward appearances, of, or they may outwardly appear as Dharma practitioners, lamas, or spiritual teachers, but inwardly they are completely consumed by the 8 worldly concerns. This is the time when my teachings will have truly declined, or this will really create the decline of the teachings. Other than that, there's no outer enemy who can really destroy the Dharma.
어떻게 나기 빼테리 생계 시비를 로 나기리 송로와 생계 시나 생계지 시디 요나더니 생계 힘에 고사 누구 말이스 그 생계지 고 당고 수보티페 현나 공수 시디 딱이 요사와 고마히 몰라 생계지 고 애니멀 상마고 해기 요와 이나 고 시디 요나 애니멀 힘바도 사 누구 말이스
자두기요 말이
사 누구 말이스 해기와 빼다데
대패 드라와야 보시라 고만성 공부
테네 가스나 이나 나kan 부터서 때네 정말 사도 그래스 테레 단기 시작해서 치다나 오제게 노그 말이스 이나 나랑 가서 치로로 주바인 바도 오지 테네 주야고 마지나 테네 kon 나바테 냠로 그러와 왔다 타마
So as is said, even the corpse of a lion is feared by other animals. So meaning, even if a lion has died and it is his corpse there, still the other animals will be afraid to eat it. But the lion is eaten by bugs from the inside. So in the same way, as the Buddha says, there's no outer enemy who can conquer the Dharma, and yet it can be destroyed from within if it is that Dharma practitioners do not really practice in a true and authentic way.
어다 디인다 제통 그게 제너럴로 지로와 아무도 지다 가서 bigger view 되는데 인다 양고 학벌들게 인디비주얼이 some 땅비나 되는 것도다 지 추게 팬남매된 세야디 그 세미나 레디거와 되는 대가나 이게 지 두준도 나가서 스타트 따지시고래 어가 가르치기도 나 주치기도 해 저와 나 주치고서는 나 주치기도 해 어가라 참반도 해 와 ngala nyingin duge o ji nege da nyomo ba chong ro du duge ta ta som tang gu yo re wa rang rang go ko tang to ya yo ma wa me xian nga song go ko tang yo ro nga chu chi nga ji chi nga me chi la ya yo ro wa yin ya me xian be ke hira ja chi to ma re o da ko chu ba yin sa re sam gro wa yin ya ko rang rang ha ko gro wa tin de rang rang ta chi ya de ke chi is
but to have sort of a bigger view, or in the bigger view, the way to protect against this is really, as Dharma practitioners, to individually always be checking, always sort of checking our motivation, always making sure to turn the mind inward and to look honestly, to see, is my practice of Dharma being
the bigger we use it, and you can't love the poor. The Tanda de specific individually lamna in the race.
Oh, sorry. So what he was saying was the bigger view had to do with what he was explaining before, but then individually, what we are to do is to practice in this way, to always be turning the mind inward, to really see, is the way, my approach to Dharma, is it benefiting or is it not benefiting? Am I improving or not? And to always at all times, be asking ourselves, am I really acting in a way that is in accord with the Dharma? Am I really practicing? Am I really is my mind state one that is really authentically merged with the Dharma? Do I have love? Do I have compassion? Or am I being motivated right now by afflictive emotions? So the important thing is to not allow not allow ourselves to be deceived by ourselves, to not deceive ourselves. Really, actually, there's no need to deceive ourselves. We don't, we're completely capable of avoiding that, deceiving ourselves. Really, I mean, when it comes to others, we don't have as much control. Other people can deceive us very, possibly very easily, that we don't necessarily have control over, but we should have control over whether we deceive our own selves or not.
All right. So also we said that means witness.
Witness.
Yeah. So we have to witness ourselves. So not that we cannot witness like other people. So
we can be a witness to ourselves. We don't have to be a witness to other people.
Yeah, other people is very difficult. So also Buddha, even the Buddha said, we really don't know, other people's mind. The ordinary mind to ordinary, you don't know.
Like ordinary people can't figure other ordinary people out. So just don't even try.
Right. So
but we can figure ourselves
witness
out.
Also.
We can witness our own mind.
So also we said every time check our mind, and also so we try to progress on mind. How I said, so we have everything. We have method, we have tools for temporarily happy and good life, and also as well as benefit for complete achievement. So yes, we have tools, but same time we have to how to use, so also every time we have to recover better and better. So that's we better means I said this, no one's judging others, we cannot judge others. So we only can judge our own mind. So also with whatever this realization experience, so we look at time. So if you look at the own mind, so you have less afflictive emotions or less the negative side, and like more increasing and the positive side. So then it naturally tremendous, joyful, so we know. So then no need to rely on external. So external say, oh, so look in my mind. So my mind is good, so like the virtuous mind. Then the others, externally, so oh, you are bad, or you are just a no practitioner, and this, that. Doesn't matter. I know my mind, So that's kind of this senses or deeper way really enjoy joyful, like stable, confident. But otherwise, if not really, our own mind is not pure. So external say, oh, you are very good and this and that. And yeah, superficially, maybe people look a bit, good, But then we look inside, it's sort of like a bit empty. So because they're not really deeper joy, happiness cannot come because that inside side is there something not pure. So that's a kind of we every time we have to dharma practice, routine, but same time every time how I'm doing. Mm. So how is my mind? Uh, so so that way I think here saying is just very important time to time uh, if check the own mind. Otherwise, the affect emotions or negative it is like thief.
They're like thieves.
And also like what is it, the what is
Eight worldly
worldly concerns.
concerns.
Those things thief.
They're
So
thieves.
we don't know what they may be stealing our virtues or bring down. So time to time we look at what they're going on. Also, we can check time to time check inner mind. So that means the real protection. It prevents all the eight worldly concerns or
So if we check our own mind from time to time, then we're really protecting ourselves. That's real protection.
All right. So then do you have some questions or comments? I think this is versus we finish, I think.
There doesn't seem to be any questions so far, but there was a request that when we finish for Virginia to maybe lead us in the bodhicitta, to sing the bodhicitta prayer with the sangha.
To sing the bodhicitta prayer?
So, Changchu.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just to lead us in the
Okay,
that
sure.
prayer.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. You can do that.
Okay. In Tibetan, we do.
Yeah. And so do you have some questions or comments?
The James ki, the Rahor Chuda, the etc.
So there was something anonymously that was written. It said something along the lines of, sometimes as Westerners, to examine our own faults might bring up maybe sort of a self-attacking or depression or self-loathing, and maybe even despair. So if you have any sort of comments or recommendations about that, does that make sense, Virginia? It wasn't really phrased very much, but the idea that Westerners sometimes can look too much within, and then it becomes a form of despair or self-loathing. Maybe if Rinpoche would speak on that a little bit.
Yes, so maybe can be, but also kind of look and can be, maybe you say like maybe worse, but can be better, So sometimes this worry and concern is like the no reason. So we have worry, but then sort of look inside my mind. So I don't know, depending, but you look at the mind, you cannot find anything there is issues. So then become, I'm not sure actually, but my opinion is more stable, more stronger. But otherwise, if not analyze on mind, so the superficial way, maybe just worry come, there's no reason. But then the worries or some thinking, oh, I'm not good, But this, what is not good? the reason. No reason, but then the worries. So like more confident is in actually is, I don't know, maybe take time, but analyze if like for example, I look at my mind, and my mind is or whatever realization my mind or love and compassion, whatever sincerely practice. That's its best protection. Then this 100,000 people say, oh, you are bad, you are not practitioner, you have no compassion. They cannot do anything, those people. But otherwise, we think, oh, so you are bad, you know. They're sort of be worried, oh, yeah, I'm bad, you know.
But I think what I'm understanding a little bit based on this question is that maybe what the person is saying is that when you're looking in at the mind and you see all your faults, you see how afflicted the mind is, or all of the faults become visible, then you become discouraged, right?
Yeah, something like that. And then to the point where you can become despaired. There's so many problems, you know, that someone might become.
Oh, right. Okay. Another hand, yes. So, like what, for example, okay, deeper look. You have to look mind. So all the superficial is yes, all the problems, right? Your mind is problems.
So I would like to just say, I think what Druban is making a distinction here when he keeps saying superficial, he's talking about like the conceptual mind, right? So the thoughts and emotions are actually superficial. What is deeper is the true essence of awareness. So identifying with what is deeper and recognizing the superficial, that's not really you, right?
Right, and also this, I think, two ways. You know, I think you look at the two ways, at both ways, superficial way or relative level benefits, and of course, ultimate levels benefits. Superficial way benefit is sometimes I said we think, you know, we are fall, you know, but really this is not fall.
Fault.
Or we think I feel, well, that's just maybe not good. This is not good motivation, this concept. But you know, but then you can handle easy way. Okay, that's just I think my fault. So I no longer go there. But otherwise, sort of like we sort of bury, you know, like
Or
smell things.
avoid, you mean?
I think this word
Yeah.
or another, I don't know, but some I don't know, some stuff maybe smell, bad smell. Okay, so then we try to like cover up.
With a nice smell.
No.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe dirt or something. But then smell go more further, maybe deeper. You can. So this kind of no ending. Like smell is maybe worse. So sort of okay. My opinion is yes, maybe first maybe a little bit harder, of course, but uncomfortable. But later on we can clean up. So first there's okay, this smell, something. Okay, just take out. Like first maybe you really smell, okay, this, or I don't want to touch those things. But you like lick up harder, clean up. Then there's no longer smell there, no longer bad things there. But sometimes we the affect emotions, it's sort of like very little bit, you know, oh, I don't want this one. So that never goes away. I said it worse and worse, you know. And that's, I think, benefit is like a relative level or superficial way. And they, of course, ultimate level is there no faults. Okay, you look at, I say, oh, I fall this and that, oh, I bad, you know, I this not good, this and that. Okay, there you say, oh, really, I want these bad things, my faults. You look deeper, you know, just really focus your faults. But you can't find really, you really sincerely look, you can't find your faults. Ultimately, where's faults? Just kind of like temporary, you know, like superficial thoughts. There's no essence, no real. So that way is just kind of totally, I believe, can clean, So
That's very good. Thank you.
okay, so okay, dedication.
So we can do 24 in the prayer book. And then I think the bodhicitta prayer is on page 19. Oh, yeah. By the virtues collected in the 3 times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Trikungpa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. And then on page 19, we can do once in English and then 3 times in Tibetan. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. We do together. Changchu Sencho Rinpoche Mage Panam Gyurjik Agam